It was one of the most brutal and disturbing murders in Sioux Falls' history.
In 1995, a young mother was stabbed to death with steak knives by two men as part of a contract killing.
In all, 5 men ranging in age from 18 to 22 went to prison. 4 of them were sentenced to life without parole for their roles in the conspiracy.
In tonight's KELOLAND News investigation, Angela Kennecke looks back at the details of this horrific case and discovers that even though all confessed to the crime, one now has a chance of getting out of prison early.
25-year-old Mary Kay Ross was studying to be a paralegal. She had a 14-month-old baby girl. Mary Kay was living in these apartments with best friend Amy Enright Power. She was helping Amy escape an abusive marriage to Robert Power.
Power wanted Ross killed because she was interfering in his marriage.
Former KELOLAND News crime reporter Jessica Armstrong covered the case from start to finish. In 1995, Power asked Michael Lee Smith to kill Mary Kay for him.
There is evidence that one of the conspirators provided money, provided a diagram, provided an automobile, and provided a key in order for other members of the conspiracy to enter the apartment of Mary Kay Ross and commit her murder.
Former Minnehaha County State's Attorney Dave Nelson prosecuted the case.
It was a particularly brutal murder. Certainly one of the most violent crimes that I was involved with in my 24 years in the state's attorney's office.
Smith wasn't the one who carried out Mary Kay's murder. He got his roommates from this Sioux Falls apartment, Eric Kuhn and Robert Poppin, to do it.
Methamphetamine was a big part of this case. The murder for hire was Power agreed to pay these two contract killers a pound of methamphetamine and $10,000. He didn't have either one, I don't think.
Power gave Eric Kuhn the maps, an apartment key, car keys to get there, and $50 for Kuhn and Robert Poppin to buy knives and gloves.
Details of the horrific murder were laid out in court documents.
How Kuhn and Poppin bought camouflage gloves and steak knives hours before the murder. How they let themselves into Ross' apartment with the key, with all the lights off in Ross' apartment, held up a cigarette lighter, watched for a moment as Ross slept, and then stabbed her until their cheap steak knives bent and broke. Ross followed the men out of her bedroom, told them to get out, but instead they went to her kitchen, took out more knives, and stabbed Ross again.
Go into her bedroom as she slept with her 1-year-old child in the bedroom next to her, and basically jump onto her bed, wake her up, and begin to stab her repeatedly to death. That's exactly what they did, and they did it for money and for drugs. That's a contract killing.
Perhaps the most horrifying in all this was when Kuhn explained how he felt during the murder.
Kuhn told her they were pumped up but weren't nervous or scared. She says Poppin told her at first when he was stabbing Ross it felt weird. Then he got an eerie feeling and said he started to like it and talked about how much blood there was. Ross felt like a rag doll, throwing her around, that she wouldn't stop struggling.
Mary Kay's last act was to call 911.
Ross told the dispatcher, "I need help. I've been stabbed." When asked where she had been stabbed, Ross said, "All over." And the last words the dispatcher could make out, "I have a baby."
Mary Kay was stabbed 16 times. Michael Lee Smith's case went to court. His taped confession was allowed in his trial, and Smith was found guilty. Kuhn, Power, and Poppin all pled guilty in order to escape the death penalty and got life in prison without a chance for parole.
Kuhn and Poppin got their second chance. They got it when the death penalty was taken off the table. They were charged with first-degree murder. It was clearly a death case because it was murder for hire.
Walter Kraft Jr., seen flipping off our news cameras here in 1995, was charged with accessory to murder for throwing away Ross's clothing. He was sentenced to less than 3 years in prison. Smith's appeal was denied by the South Dakota Supreme Court in 1998. In 2002, justices also rejected Kuhn's and Poppin's request to get a new trial. Kuhn and Poppin claimed their confessions to police shouldn't have been allowed to be used as evidence because they were under the influence of drugs or suffering from withdrawal when they were questioned. Now, Eric Kuhn will go before the South Dakota Board of Pardons and Paroles to ask that his sentence be reduced, making him eligible for parole. Should the board recommend it, it would be up to the governor to commute his sentence.
Now, these guys want a second chance. Mary Kay Ross never got one. And her daughter never got a second chance to be with her mom. So when it comes to second chances, I think we should be pretty narrow-minded about these violent offenders who want another break, particularly after they've had such a terrific break in getting away from the death penalty.
The family of Mary Kay Ross has organized a letter-writing campaign to the Board of Pardons and Paroles, protesting any chance of Kuhn or the other perpetrators' sentences be lessened. They issued Kettleman Investigates a statement, which reads, in part, the inmates responsible for her brutal murder on July 9th, 1995, were given tremendous mercy when they were sentenced to life in prison without any chance of parole instead of the death penalty, after admitting to, contemplating, and pleading guilty to their heinous crimes. Her family says they want justice for Mary Kay Ross upheld. Members of her family are coming in from all around the country to attend Kuhn's hearing for commutation on Wednesday at the South Dakota State Penitentiary. Kettleman Investigates will be covering the hearing and will bring you the decision.
Thank you, Angela. The other men in the case, Poppen, Smith, and Power, have all requested commutations of their sentences, but none were advanced to a full board review like Kuhn is getting.